I think I have been covered, so not more about myself, but I come from RIKO, the Council for International Conflict Resolution. We started in 2008 because we were a group of people who had been active in no to nuclear weapon in Denmark. It was abolished in 1991, this organization. But then we saw those wars Denmark got involved in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and so on, in Libya also. So Denmark got into one war after the other, and it was terrible to look at. And there was no peace movement at that time in what we call zeros. Not really any active peace movement. So we just meet each other and we discussed what should we do? Should we make a new peace movement? And then we had a brainstorming, and then we found out two things. One thing is we would make a think tank, because that was a new concept. So we made the concept, the RIKO as a think tank. And then we also wanted to put a lot of emphasis on the net, have a homepage and show media, etc., because it was where the new times were. So that was how we started, and then we looked around also for theories, and we found out that conflict resolution and also international conflict resolution was a good way to start. Because we were interested, maybe not so much about disarmament as such, but we were interested in conflicts, and especially what was the background for conflict? What was behind the conflicts and the wars we had? So that was where we started to find out of that. And one of the concepts from the right of the beginning was the concept of confidence. So we said that unless we can make confidence between two parties in conflict, we are not coming very further. Because we could, of course, try to say we have to decrease the arms 10%, but it would not change very much if the parties, they were still enemies, etc. So we had to go behind the conflicts, collect the people in conflict, etc. So this about meeting and having and using the toolbox, as we say, conflict resolution, negotiation, mediation, and so on. It was the important thing. Not more about RIKO. I would like to start with the concept of escalation. I think what we have seen the last 1.5 years with I had to talk about the Ukraine conflict, and so it's some views about the Ukraine conflict I'm trying to speak about. And if I look at the Ukraine conflict, then what I'm seeing is escalation. So with regard to weapon systems, it is like the West, but also Russia, they are walking up of a ladder. You know, they started with short-range weapons, hand weapons and so on, and then it went step by step. At a certain time, Germany and United States said, tanks, you are never getting tanks, not at all. But what we saw, the next day, Zelensky had got a weapon, then he started to say, I also want to have Leopard 2 tanks. And it didn't take very long, then the German government said, yes, you'll get the Leopard 1 and 2 tanks. And the same with the tanks from United States, Abraham tanks. United States said, you'll never get it, Never, but they got it in the end. And you could have a long list of weapon systems. And they have been more long-ranging, more heavier, and more dangerous over time. It has just gone one way, up. And they have not tried just at a certain time to stop up and say, shouldn't we just talk together at least? Not at all. It has just gone one way, and it has gone very fast. And the last thing it is F-16 fighter jets. It was also said from the West, you are never getting it, it's impossible. It would create a war with Russia and maybe maybe a third world war, etc. But they got it, and they will get it. And Denmark is training the pilots. So we can go on as this escalation and no break in it. Let's go a little bit. No, that's the wrong way. Oh, yeah. I think. Yeah. Let's take that also. I have not arranged exactly as I should. But what we see, for instance, here in Denmark, it is that our Prime Minister is just thinking in the old way of solving conflicts, namely win-lose. She's saying again and again, we have to win over Russia. We have to defeat Russia. And Russia is a big country, and the country with most of the nuclear weapons. But nevertheless, they are thinking in win-lose. That's not what we are doing in conflict resolution. Yeah, that was the one I wanted to show before. So we have had this conflict escalation, but we also know that at a certain time they get tired. Ukraine has said we are having an offensive campaign against Russia, and the next 6-8 months. And of course we will win, they are saying. But we also know that at the end of this year there might happen something. And you can say, maybe I'm wrong, it will just go on. And you might also be right. It's so difficult to predict what would happen. But we know that it's difficult to wage war when we come to November, December, and when Ukraine has said that their offensive somehow would be finished, at least in the first row. Several European leaders, among others, the Czech president has said there's only one shot in the gun. And by that he's thinking that if Ukraine is not winning here in this offensive the next 6-8 months, then we have to go to another way of fighting. We don't know if that would happen, but we know that there would come a discussion about it. And he has said it, and I think I have the article, there's only one shot in the gun, and it is the offensive here in the summer and the autumn. So what we could think is that there might come, in the end of the year, a kind of stalemate. Because it is also before the American president's election is starting, and we know that there is an opposition to war in the United States, and it can come easily up in a presidential campaign. So I'm just also introducing this concept of stalemate and a hurting stalemate. And what does it mean with a stalemate? It means that soldiers and the elites in the involved countries are getting a little bit tired of war. they are looking around and they are seeing we are not having progress in 1 year. And they are being killed and killed and killed. And among the NATO countries, there might be disagreement. Some, the Baltics would say we have to go on into 24. Others, the Czechs, the Hungarians, the French, maybe the Americans would say no, now we have to sit down. Because there is this situation of a hurting stalemate. It is something we know, so it might happen. I'll be very cautious of saying anything. You can say, you can, what should I say, put me up on, because there can happen so much in this war that it's impossible to predict at all. And I'm not predicting anything. I'm just coming with a kind of informed feeling of what I think it is, and not more. So we have to be prepared, especially a little bit later in the year, to pressure our governments to say, now it's time to negotiate. Because we should also be aware of that there is a concept called de-escalation. Let's go into de-escalation, because it is when we try to get down the ladder, to try to demilitarize, to de-escalate, and so on. So that's something else. Let's see, it's here. Yeah, and I would like to show you this one here. It is a picture on how we think in conflict resolution. We think that the goal is a win-win solution. Not win in the sense that we are just winning all what we want, but in the way that we are getting a solution we can live with. So both parties negotiate and they come to a solution they both can live with, and which is not just starting the war 2 months after. So win-win is very important, and we must hope that it's also a concept which are in the foreign ministries. Because before you start negotiating, then you have to think also of getting the other part with you. And I'm suggesting, and maybe not all here are in agreement with it, that we have to start with finding common grounds. You can see here win-win, and in the middle there is some part where both parties they share. And it's where we have to start. And both in psychological theory, but also in conflict resolution, that's where you start. To create a relatively good atmosphere, etc., you try first to have the points where you more or less agree. It could be exchanges of prisoners, in Ukraine, Russia, it could be that they agree on exporting corn, etc., to North Africa, etc. It could also be that one weapon system, they agree on not using that. For instance,
Cluster ammunition.
Yes, cluster, thank you. Cluster ammunitions, klyngebomber. I'm not saying that it's where they end, but it could be forbidding certain types of weapon that they could start next in this first common ground. And I think also as a peace movement we should be aware of that. Sometimes we should start with smaller demands, like cluster bombs. Having a worldwide, it is already forbidden and there is a convention and all that, I'm aware of that, but Russia, United States and Ukraine, they have not accepted it. So a good idea could be to have a worldwide campaign to ban cluster bombs. because it would be realistic to get going. So when I'm talking about de-escalation, I think it's where you have to start. You have to find some demands which is somehow realistic, and then go on and on with this de-escalation. And of course the nations which have supported Ukraine should also be very active in this finding and de-escalation. And the peace movement could help. And it would be another situation if we are coming into a kind of de-escalation time. If we come there. And there is a chance, November, December this year. It doesn't mean that we should not be active until November. So don't ask me this question if we shouldn't be active and come with a solution and so on. Yes, we should. We should just make pressure, but we should have some realism in finding the timing. The timing is very important. Sometimes we can get through. We got through in the beginning of the 80s with the short-range Pershing and also the Russian missiles, because we got a treaty, the NLF treaty, in 1987, where all short and middle-range missiles were banned in a treaty. We came to that. It was just immediate after the big demonstrations, where 100,000 people in Germany went in demonstrations, and we had our Easter demonstrations. And the interesting thing is, we won the first battle to a great extent, and we got this victory. So it is possible if we are just empathetic and we have a feeling of timing. I also know Sten Folke has said that several times. Timing is very important when we make resolutions and so on, and it's true. It is true. Yes, we have to go on. Let's see, I had something there. Yeah, we have had. I think also we could take a look at from conflict resolution of the conflict ladder, and there are many versions on the internet on this conflict ladder. Yeah, I was a little bit in doubt whether you could see it down, but very short. I know that this ladder is made mainly to micro conflict resolution, but there are some of the dynamics in it I think we can learn from, and I'm aware of that there are difference between micro conflicts, conflicts between people, conflicts between groups in society, and then macro conflicts, conflicts between countries. There are differences between those categories of conflicts. Yes, and I would never say anything else. But let's at least learn from the dynamics on the conflict ladder. The first one is, if we take a conflict, simple conflict, maybe it's between two people, it can also be between countries, then the first phase would be disagreement. They disagree on some questions, they go together, and if they are lucky, they would just negotiate and find a solution. It's what happens every day between countries, the Nordic countries and the EU countries and so on. They don't go to war to each other, they just negotiate. So it is negotiating disagreements. But if they don't have an agreement, then it would often go to the next level, and it is personification. And it is saying it's your fault. and it is, instead of solving the conflict, they are getting personal. It's very, very normal mechanisms that they blame. There comes a blaming game between two parties if they don't solve it. Again, if they don't solve the conflict at this level, personification, then there will often come, what should I say, a situation where problems are expanding in the way that they are bringing in new problems. So problems which in the past was a problem. It is now being taken in, and they're saying it was just your fault to do that 10 years ago and so on. The problem expands and the situation gets worse. And again, if it's not solved in this, the problem expands, then it goes on to dialogue is abandoned. So it is where they say that it's of no use to talk to you, let's not talk. The only thing you understand, it's power. And then it goes on there. And again, if it's not solved, it would go up and it would go to enemy images. They would create enemy images, like what was done during the Cold War when United States called Soviet Union an evil empire. That was a very, very clear example of enemy images. And we are also seeing it with Russia today, that there are created enemy images because they can't find out to solve things. And then it will go up to open hostility. And it can take many, many forms. But if it is between countries, it is also here that that kind of war would prevail, because they don't believe they can talk to each other. And in the end, there will come polarization. And it is that they would not have anything to do with each other. They would just say, let's go away from here. And it has happened, it happened in South Africa with apartheid, where the whites were saying we cannot live together with the blacks. Anyway, they could if they worked for them. But anyway, they were pushed out to Bantustans. And we can also find examples from the Balkan Wars where they pushed out certain ethnic groups. So ethnic cleansing, it's also belonging there, ethnic cleansing. So when we come up there, it's very, very difficult to solve things. It's much easier after a conflict has started to solve the conflict in the beginning. And the same with the Ukraine conflict. In the beginning, in March, April 2002, there were several negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, where they in fact agreed. There were talks both in Istanbul, Turkey, and also in Israel and so on, where they came quite away, because it was at the time where the conflict is starting. Conflicts get worse and worse and worse with the time. So that's why it is so bad just to wait and so on and have this escalation. So where are we now? Yeah. So conflict resolution has a toolbox, and it is negotiations, mediation, facilitation, etc. And I think you all know it, so it is what should be used, and we should press for it. And we have seen many negotiations in the world. And one of the people I work with, Isabel Bramsen, she's an expert on that. and she can tell you dozens of conflicts which has ended on the conflict modes. So it is possible, and it's also possible with the Ukraine conflict, and we have to hope that it happens because before nuclear weapons are coming in, because as you saw from this ladder, it's just going one way, and they have nearly got all the weapons, all the heavy weapon systems you can think of. What is left? We could ask. What is left? So, and what? Yeah, lose. It's in the. Have I talked already too long?
Yellow card. Okay.
What?
Yellow.
Yellow.
You remember we had a yellow and a red one.
So it's 5 minutes.
It's yeah. At the most.
I forget everything on time.
Yeah.
Then I would like to take the last ones I have, and it is I have tried to think of some scenarios, and it is not backed up by any evidence or any sources, etc. It is my own thinking, and only that. And it can happen in the end can happen in many ways. So how will the Ukraine conflict happen? One way, the most probable way, it is what we could call a Korea scenario. It is that in the end of the war there is coming this hurting stalemate, and they find out they have to negotiate. And also the situation would be that nobody is winning. They are just preserving the situation they have today, and there would come a kind of demarcation line between the Russians and the Ukrainians, and for 1 year it has not moved, or it has moved very little. And then the chance on ending is a kind of Korea scenario. It can be after negotiations, they make that, but it can also be without negotiations, where they just stay behind their demarcation lines, fortified very much from both sides, and then there would be this situation: no war, no peace. That's the most likely situation I see. It is not what the politicians are telling us. They are telling us, like before a football match, we will win. But I don't think it's what would happen, because it's an overweight evaluation. Then it could also happen that Ukraine wins either partly or totally. Russia is weak in many ways also. So there is also a chance that in one way or other Ukraine will have some partly victory. And then of course it's also, I don't think they will win totally unless there is a regime change in Russia. So, and then so also negotiations would be necessary there. And the worst, it is of course a nuclear war. I don't think there is so big chance for it, because the consequences would be so terrible. So because it would nearly end up in the Third World War. And then it's the last one. It's the last one, and it's important. It's just 2 sentences. What is important for the peace movement to discuss? One thing is, it is be more international. We should have also among us people from the peace movement. Why shouldn't they be a part of us also? And there are several peace-to-peace organizations, no, not peace-to-peace, people-to-people organizations. They should also be a part of us. That's all.